Welcome to Nugget 110 with Steve Groman, and this will be the conclusion of our little mini-series on compromising Genesis. And today's question is, are you willing to compromise Genesis with evolutionary astronomers or cosmologists?
Well, I would say certainly not. Cosmology is a branch of metaphysics that deals with the nature of the universe, a theory or doctrine describing the natural order of the universe, a branch of astronomy that deals with the origin, structure, and space-time relationships of the universe. Cosmology is the scientific study of the origin and structure of the universe. Astrophysics, the branch of astronomy that deals with the physical properties of celestial bodies and the interactions between matter and radiation in the interior of celestial bodies and in interstellar space. Astrophysics, the branch of applied physics that deal with astronomical phenomena.
Well, I know that you use this article so much in the different space lessons that you do, and I do want to recommend our misconceptions about space. It's a full 2 hours of powerful information on misconceptions about space, and we have done nuggets on space. One of the main statements in this article is excellent. It says, "The crux of today's cosmological paradigm is that in order to maintain a mathematically unified theory valid for the entire universe, we must accept that 95% of our cosmos is furnished by completely unknown elements and forces for which we have no empirical evidence whatsoever. For a scientist to be confident of this picture requires an exceptional faith in the power of mathematical unification." And that's one of the main goals of this nugget, is to let you see that it's a lot of theory, a lot of math, and no empirical evidence.
And according to this article, a lot of exceptional faith. The universe is just a big hologram, astrophysicists claim. There is as much evidence for the holographic universe as there is for traditional explanations. This is just in 2017. This is amazing to me because if there's as much evidence for a holographic universe as for the traditional explanations, the way I look at it is there's no evidence for the traditional explanations.
This should pop your eyes open.
It absolutely should.
Carl Sagan, scientist, he was an American astronomer and science writer. He used his talents not only for scientific research and government space projects, but also in mass media. And that's important. He had a program that he co-produced and he narrated it. It was called Cosmos. And a lot of us would watch that show and enjoy it. And he was sort of the precursor to Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is the more prominent, charismatic style person today.
Right.
And here's a quote from Carl Sagan: "We are made of star stuff."
All these people claim that, whether it's Neil deGrasse, it's Carl Sagan, or whether it's Lawrence Krauss, they all say that we're just stardust. And it's in the textbooks too. I've shown slides 25, 26 years ago at our meetings that say, out of physics books, that say we're all just stardust.
And it just seemed ridiculous, but
it does seem ridiculous.
Comes out of these guys' mouths.
As though it's true. Because according to them, it has to be that's what the truth is, because there was something that blew up, and out of that something that blew up, everything showed up. So we have to be made of those particles.
And again, in previous nuggets, we've talked about Oort Cloud. Carl Sagan with his quote saying, "Many scientific papers are written each year about the Oort Cloud, its properties, its origin, its evolution. Yet there is not yet a shred of direct observational evidence for its existence." And that's what's important, is they admit they don't do the scientific method. They don't have direct observational evidence. They can't. And what's interesting about the Oort Cloud, they have it positioned this side of the first stars.
Yes, of the closest star, Alpha Centauri.
And that's just,
and they say that they
nuts.
Can't observe it because telescopes can't see that far. Essentially is what they say. Here's another Carl Sagan quote. I like this one. This was at NASA in Houston. It says, "Imagination will often carry us to worlds that never were, but without it we go nowhere." And you know, when you think about theoretical physics and theoretical physicists and astrophysicists, these people, they have a lot of ideas. Like that first article said, cosmology has some big problems. They have ideas, they have thoughts and such, and they just tell everybody what their thoughts are, and they call it science.
And it's accepted, as the cliche
As
would
its
go,
truth.
as gospel truth. We just wanted to include this one article, and again, we have hundreds of articles just on space alone where they're contradicting each other or admitting that they don't have information. But we wanted to read a little bit from this article.
Science News. This is only September 2019. The expanding question. Scientists tackle conflict over how fast the universe is ballooning. They say it's ballooning, but they don't know how fast. In a room just steps from the ocean in Santa Barbara, California, astronomers and physicists shifted restlessly in their chairs. Sunshine and sea breezes beckoned, but the group had cloistered itself to debate one of the biggest quandaries in physics. How fast is the universe expanding? Much is at stake. Scientists thought they had a handle on how the universe works, including how quickly it is spreading out. But a growing list of conflicting results on the expansion rate is calling into question the fundamental fundamental knowledge about the content of the universe and how it evolves over time. That's all a big statement right there. Their understanding now is calling into question the fundamental knowledge about the contents of the universe and how it evolves over time. Well, they thought they had that pretty well figured out, like it says.
In the last 2 decades or so, a theory known as the Standard Cosmological Model has gained favor among scientists for its ability to explain a wide variety of cosmic observations. But a discrepancy in measurements of the universe's expansion could mean the model itself needs to drastically change.
Yes, they say this all the time. And this is 2019, September. But they've said the same thing basically every decade. They're constantly having to come up with new things because they've left out the creator. They've left out what he truly did. And so they got to come up with something.
At the front of the room on July 15, 2 Nobel Prize-winning physicists, physics titans, debated the appropriate level of alarm. Adam Rice, a cosmologist at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore, asked theoretical particle physicist David Gross, how would particle physicists refer to a discrepancy this large? If we found something like this, we wouldn't call it a tension or a problem, but rather a crisis, said Gross of the Kavli Institute.
Not everyone agrees the problem is real, but it's the physicist's version of a mic drop. They know that there's a problem. However, the impasse can't be explained away by experimental error. It would mean that there is really something very important that we do not understand from the very early universe. Well, again, I would say, of course, what they don't understand is they left the creator out, so they cannot understand.
Absolutely. I could have recommended a more fun time if you were out in Santa Barbara than arguing with a bunch of physicists in a room.
Good point. I often quote Dr. Michio Kaku in our Misconceptions About Space lesson, and in a quote from him in a documentary called The Principle, he was discussing this, and he said, usually in science, if we're off by a factor of 2 or a factor of 10, we call that horrible. We say something's wrong with the theory. We're off by a factor of 10. However, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120th. That is one with 120 zeros after it. This is the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in the history of science, he says.
Here's a little write-up on Michio Kaku that he's a theoretical physicist,
co-founder of string field theory.
He continues Einstein's research on the theory of everything. And I know you pointed out several days ago in another Nugget, how long can something be a theory? Why haven't they found it and advanced it to a law? Why are they still dealing with theories?
The longer something is a theory, the obviously less and less information and truth they have of it, or they would have advanced it.
Einstein was a century ago, and they're still working on his theories?
Exactly. He authored also several scholarly PhD level textbooks. He has had more than 70 articles published in physics journals covering topics, superstring theory, supergravity, supersymmetry, hadron physics. He is an extremely educated man, very knowledgeable in this field, and he comes up with these statements that we don't know anything, essentially.
I do want to add here, he was in this movie, The Principle. It was very controversial, and they had interviewed several people like Lawrence Krauss and him. Many of the top scientists, they got upset and they've made comments about this particular movie, misquoting them, but they are making these statements. We don't know about that. We can't speak for that, but we do just want to give that little disclaimer.
Yeah, we didn't have any part of the movie, obviously, and it was a 2014 movie. It was back sometime. But still, it's an amazing statement for somebody like him to say in the first place.
But we do want to give one more definition, and that is one on theoretical physics, because that's what Michio Kaku is a theoretical physicist.
Theoretical physics is a field devoted to modeling physical phenomena and leaves the rocket science to experimental physicists. Theoretical physicists build on the works of scientists like Maxwell, Hawking, Einstein. Theoretical physicists are thinkers in the academic world, and their work operates alongside experimental physics to provide a picture of the cosmos. They use mathematics and insights drawn from models such as string theory or the Standard Model to describe and predict physical occurrences. Research in theoretical physics may explore nuclear physics, cosmology, mathematical physics, particle physics, gravitational physics. However, theoretical or mathematical physics does not generally include experimental research.
That's what I think is interesting, that these aren't experimental.
They're thought processes.
Physicists. They aren't rocket scientists.
They're computers. They're thought processes. They're, okay, if this is true, then maybe that's that. Maybe that explains what we see. There's a lot of just belief. Like it says, an exceptional leap of faith.
I think that these guys are the ones that are just filling in the gaps. They kind of throw it, like when you have that one article that says they throw the ball in the theorist court. Because if the experimental guys, they can't come up with anything. They can't show anything. If the experiments
don't show it, they have to...
And they've got to finish out their scenario. Boop, pop it over to these guys and they'll fill in the blanks. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? You got one of these definitions from Collins, and I thought they have some funny comments here. We'll just read them. I guess they're using how you could use a theoretical physicist,
In
the
a
term,
sentence.
in a sentence. And one of them says, the habit of constructing toy models of this sort is one to which theoretical physicists easily become addicted. For theoretical physicists, the emergence of experimental evidence could be a welcome culture shock. So it's all just just a little humor here at the end of this nugget.
Such moments of vindication are rare for theoretical physicists. But the Bible does say the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Since these guys reject that statement, they can never really find the truth. They never will. They can't, because they've rejected God.
And most of them are unashamedly atheists.
Definitely anti-theist, atheist.
Yeah, they use a new term now. Instead of just calling themselves an atheist or agnostic, they called it an anti-theist.
Right.
And we've used this quote many times. It's by Stephen Hawking. Science makes God unnecessary. And here's a picture of his grave. What they say, here lies what was mortal of Stephen Hawking. And he's buried at Westminster Abbey inside of London. On Stephen Hawking's gravestone, he has this mathematical expression that you may wonder what that is. It's Stephen Hawking's own radiation temperature equation. He chose this for his grave, and the letters stand for T for temperature, the H stands for Planck's constant, used to understand parts of quantum mechanics. The C stands for the speed of light, made famous by Einstein's great formula. 8 pi, which helps us to understand that it's spherical. The G is Newton's constant to understand gravity. And the M stands for the mass of the black hole. And the K stands for Boltzmann's constant, which is the energy of gas particles. Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
We started this, are we willing to compromise Genesis with evolutionary astronomers or cosmologists? I would definitely say no. We should never do that.
No, it would not be reasonable at all.
Not be reasonable because they change their mind tomorrow.
Absolutely.
But the Bible still says what it always has.
Yes, it does. All right. Well, thank you. And we hope you have enjoyed our little mini-series on compromising Genesis.